Every Chinese New Year, we have this problem of people debating whether it's a Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year, and every year I have to explain. But let's do it one last time. It is not Lunar New Year, right? It is Chinese New Year. Why? Because the calendar that the Chinese, ancient Chinese, or up to now, the Chinese tribe is using, it is not exactly a lunar calendar, right? Lunar calendar would look something like the Islamic calendar, which solely depends on the position of the moon, right? But the Chinese, somewhere in the middle, I think about 2,000 years ago, like 1,005, 2,000 years ago, there was influenced by the Western culture that comes to play on using the sun to determine seasons, right? 24节气, right? So we have they find it is very useful because when you use that, it helps the farmers, right, to actually decide when to do their harvest, when to plant their seeds and all that, right? So in effect, it is actually a lunisolar calendar that they're using, right? So it's not accurate if you say it's a lunar New Year. And the Chinese calendar were 2 or 3 years, every 2 or 3 years, they will add a month to it. In Chinese, we call it 闰月, right? Addition month, just to readjust the months approximately to um, the Western solar calendar. That's how it works, right? So to me, I will address it as Chinese New Year, not because I'm Chinese only, but because on the technicality, it is not a lunar calendar that we're using. Okay. Okay. Now, today we went to Tampines for our walkabout again, right? And AP is upping their all these all this movement on the ground. Okay. So early in the morning, 9 o'clock, we went there at the block 823, right? Prime supermarket down there, very crowded. Right, there are basically the two main coffee shops are all packed. Right, so we are doing our walkabout. I conduct my walkabout a bit different from other parties like PAP. Right, is not just touch and go. We actually communicate with the residents, the voters. Right, so we go table by table. We'll talk to them. Right, and just talk to them and try to understand their perspective, so on and so forth. A lot of people recognize me because I've contested in Tampines, right? And they welcome me back to contest in Tampines, definitely. And of course, I introduced my teammate, right? Derek will be one of them, right? So suddenly, half an hour, less than half an hour, I think they have calling to the PAP branch. Immediately, you see PAP, young PAP, YP is a young PAP. A group of young Ps walking down, rush to the coffee shop and start to distribute this one. You know what is this? It's not just a card, right? It's actually quite a nice, supposedly quite a nice uh, reusable bag, huh? Right? Oh, I was joking with the resident. I said, you see, when we come, you have goodies already. You have goodies like this, right? So you must thank us for coming down. We should come down more, right? Then after they finish distributing this, they will start distribute ang paos, empty ang paos, right? Right? Empty ang paos and all that. Okay, so um, well, it's okay. We like competition because competition make them work harder. early in the Sunday morning, like a bunch of youngsters, not so young, about 30 to 40. Their YP is normally below 45 years old, if I'm not wrong, right? Come and distribute this and that. Well, but they get a bit I actually get a bit annoyed, right? Because the way they do it is very rude. Because as I said, when I go around the tables, I actually talk to the residents, I laugh with the residents, right? Joke with the residents, right? And try to understand that. Then in the middle of a conversation, they will just like you must take like that, push it to them, put it on the table and walk away without saying good morning or goodbye, right? Didn't address anyone, right? Like we are transparent. I think no style, right? To me, it's a lack of grooming, basic grooming of manners, right? 没有家教, we call it. Right? And actually, it reflects the PAP mindset, right? Arrogant, very arrogant, like as if that as if they are the 地头蛇 like that, their territory, right? Very unfriendly. Oh well, at least the other time when we were in Chongpang, right? At least the leading man, an Indian gentleman, and a lady, they will distribute not this tissue and all that. At least they came over and say hi and all that. I'm perfectly okay. I will say hi, right? But we don't disturb each other. We don't interrupt each other's communication or engagement with the residents. This is a matured gentleman. I'm about 50, 60 years old. But these young punks from the Tampines, YP, really no manners. Right? I think PAP branch should back up their training. Right? Not only Choa Chu Kang, I think Tampines need a training, right? To brief them how to do proper engagement. What are the rules of engagement? Okay? Yeah. Yes, it's a pretty rude to the residents themselves. Definitely. The residents are sakamos and why suddenly got something, some hand just in front, just then some of the older, more mature residents will just take it back and just laugh lah. We just laugh it off. Right? No. I didn't take videos or photos of them. Right? Because it's very paiseh lah. 这么大的人了 do not know how to behave yourself. Right? Okay, come to the main topic of the day. Unsealing. Unsealing. Unsealing, I've talked before. The other day when I talked about his exertion that for every foreign PMET, like the E-Pass, the Employment Pass, the S-Pass, right, that given out will increase 10 more opportunities for Singaporeans. I was very puzzled, right? I said, all our Singaporeans, they are working in the IT line, in the finance lines, and all that, all the PMET jobs, experience otherwise, right? Experience otherwise, okay? So I got some time, I go and bother to read up what exactly did he say, come to that conclusion. What data that he has put up, right? To come to draw that conclusion. And I found this from CNA, right? Now, the CNA, he says, he quoted him, I have no choice but to believe CNA, what CNA say lah. There's no reason for me to doubt what CNA has reported, or else they will have already. Okay. Among all the things that he has said, this is a crucial part. He says that from 2013 to 2023, that means among the 10 years, right, the number of professional, managerial, executive and technician. There's PMET. Jobs for residents. Residents, so what is the definition of residents? Normally, they take PRs and Singapore citizens. Right? Grew by 380,000, right, said Dr. Tan. In that same period, the number of employment pass as pass holders who hold jobs with higher salaries increased by about 38,000. And that's why he conclude, right? He conclude this. So for every single work pass, whether it's EP or S pass holders that is working here in Singapore for the last 10 years, it has actually generated 10 jobs opportunities for our local PMETs, said Dr. Tan. This is in his word, quoted by CNN. So anyone of you want to try to explain what's wrong with his representation? It's totally misrepresentation. Right? I've always talked about data and statistics in my talk show, whether it's COVID, excess death, and whatever, or population policies or population statistics. You do not just look at data information on the surface. You have to understand the context of the data. That means how these data are derived. Okay? So he claims within these 10 years, there were an increase of 380,000 PMETs jobs for locals, which is PRs and Singapore citizens. Well, if you take it superficially, the PRs numbers are actually pretty quite constant, right, throughout the 20 years. It stays about slightly above 500,000, right? 500,000, that means 500,000, right? But does it mean that no new PRs are given out? Of course not. Not only there are PRs who have dropped out, right? Then you have to give out new PRs, right, to replace it. But there are PRs who become citizens. And what are the numbers of citizens that we are giving out every year on average? According to ICA data, I've touched on this before in previous live chat, right? They claim, right? They claim, I have not scrutinized every year yet. I only scrutinized 2023, right? Which I find disparity. Never mind. They claim that there are 22,000 new citizenship given up. So where are these 22,000 people comes from to become a new citizens? Right? Almost all of the new citizenship given out are given out to who? To the PRs. That means every year, on average, there will be about 22,000 PRs being upgraded to new citizens. It would also mean, in order to maintain the same 500,000 or so PRs every year, you have to give similarly 22,000 new PRs to foreigners. You know, right? But of course, the new citizenship may include babies born of Singaporeans overseas and all that lah. That are very minor, right? But there are some variation, like there are people who give up their citizenship and all that. Okay, but never mind, right? Never mind. We just take it as superficial at these figures. We don't complicate this. Now, I want to ask you, how do you get a PR? There are a few sources of foreigners who get the PR. The main source are people who are on employment pass or S pass. Then you can get a PR. That means there must be PMET earning a certain level of income. The other source, of course, are spouses of Singapore citizens, right? Right. The other source, very small number, are actually those people, right, who invest in Singapore with certain amount of money, then they'll be granted PR. Right? But the bulk of it are from those who used to have employment pass, right? And S pass. Of course, they are students, right? On scholarship or study in Singapore, right? Who actually they have this so-called approval in principle permanent residence. It means that after you graduate from NUS or NTU or whichever university in Singapore, you will be granted PR in approval once you get a job. You don't even need to apply for employment pass or S pass. That's called approval in principle PRs. But that are actually not the major. The major bulk comes from employment pass holders and S pass. Right. So let's see this. It means this. It's actually a pyramid. Okay. This is small graph. In simplicity, we take out the noise. Right. Citizens only come from PRs. Right. And PRs only come from E-pass and S-pass. Right. It means that roughly about 20,000 to 22,000 of PMET who are PRs, okay, actually becomes new citizens. Of course, their children and all that are that we do not know the breakdown. We just assume that everyone are dead. So they are promoted. Right? There are only 22,000, right? Already 22,000. On average, he says, if it's 380,000 over 10 years, that means on average there are 38,000 new PMET jobs. But are these supposed to be new created jobs for Singaporeans? No. It's just a promotion for a PR, right? Right? And when the PRs are relatively stable, it means that there must be equivalent of 22,000 or so of E-pass or S-pass promoted to PR, right? Correct. So what are the new jobs created, new PMET jobs created for citizens? It's actually 16K only a year. But in order to supplement the E-pass and S-pass and at the same time increase by 3.8 thousand, right? 3,800 more every year because add together 10 years is 38,000. So each year is 3,008 increment, right? You have to have given out 22,000 plus 3.8 thousand of new E-pass and S-pass because some of E-pass and S-pass already become PRs. Is that not? This is a simple pyramid system, right? That's why I say it's totally bullshit. It's a misrepresentation of data. And this should be taken as a statistics 101 course lecture to explain how presentation and misrepresentation of data can come to the wrong conclusion. You are actually giving out E-pass and S-pass every year more than the citizens who have benefited from the new jobs created for our new graduates, the PMETs. Salah mo? You just look carefully. Salah mo? No. Right. No. We look from another perspective. Right? Since 1990s, right? Since 1990s, our birth rate, the number of babies that we have, is about 40,000, slightly more than 40,000, and it keep dropping. Right? And now it's less than 40,000, definitely less than 40,000 every year. So you will create new PMET job. You are creating for who? Of course, for a new graduate, what? You know? But among the cohort, every cohort of graduates, on average, there should be about similar lah, about 30,000 graduate lah from different courses lah. How can it be 100% are PMETs? Okay, by definition of PMETs linked to education level, tertiary students are those who are from polytechnic and universities, right? I believe it's about 40% to 50% of Singapore cohort will be educated to become PMETs in this institution. So out of 40,000, let's say 40,000 people, right? 50% is only 20,000. So the 16K down here is actually quite pretty accurate. The new PMETs jobs that given to the new graduates, right? It cannot be 38,000 per year one. Bo pian one, right? Cannot be 100% of Singaporeans become PMET one. Right? That's total bullshit. If you even if we want to think that we create 38,000 PMET jobs for Singaporean, right? Every year, you don't even have that many of Singaporeans to take up that. So my dissection of this data into the context is pretty accurate in that sense. And it definitely means that Tan See Leng is misrepresenting the data without understanding the context or without putting out the context like this. Okay? And it is true. That is how our population can increase 2 million people since 2004. 20 years ago, within the 20 years, we can increase 2 million people within 20 years. Right? It's very simple. For PE pass and S pass alone, every year, definitely not 3.8K one, definitely more people coming in because all are promoted to citizens through the PR and through, right, from PR to citizens, new citizens. Today, when I went down to Tampines. I met a lot of old people, retirees. I also met middle-aged people like us, like me, about 50 plus, like, with children, matured children. That means 18 years old, 20 plus, or even 30 plus. Right? They are not smiling, even though Chinese New Year is around, around the corner. Many of them are actually worrying in that sense. For their children, retirees, nothing to worry except for inflation. Right? Those are middle age, 50 years old, 40, 50 years old, before they are retired. They worry for their own job. Of course, if they lose their job, they know they are not going to get back the same job with the same salary. And they rather worry for their children. Jobs perspective. I said to them, if we continue to open our doors like that, there will always be better people, cheaper people out there with double degree, master degree, double master degree, who can take the job of our young graduates. If we do not have job opportunities, right, good job opportunities, not Grab drivers, right, to groom our graduates, fresh graduates, how are they going to have the opportunity to be groomed to raise the corporate ladder? Because opportunities are important, right? And there's no job security at all. That's why I find the ground is quite swelling against PAP. PAP IBs watch this must go and write report. People are angry. People are actually bitter of all this nonsense going on. And you try to use all this misrepresentation of data to gaslight people. Totally out of context. Right? And last but not least, he claims, right? Dr. Tan See Leng claims, oh, because we give new E-Pass and S-Pass, PMET. Therefore, we create 10 job opportunities for Singaporeans. But now, we find that it's rubbish. Right? We create more jobs for the E-Pass and S-Pass. Right? Then, the job opportunities for our citizens. Because the 16,000 of citizens are new PMET. I have not include those who have retired. People who will retire, people who are older, 10 years older than me, who are PMET, they will retire. And there's job vacancies, right? So this is not a job created. It's a job vacancy that have to be replenished. Correct. I do not have the data on this because this is a very complex demographic data. Yeah, categorized because not in the DOS department, Department of Statistics. But as a student, economic student, I always scrutinize data like nobody else do that, right? Because a lot of people take data out of context, okay? And now including our ministers, right? So it is rubbish. You cannot just take data as it is and just present like that, right? Now, even so, it doesn't mean that because we we are able to create one E-Pass or S-Pass, therefore our citizen can be employed. Correlation is not causation. That's what they always want to say about COVID data. Now they do not have a concrete idea of what correlation and causation. How can it be a causation when I create a job for the additional E-Pass or S-Pass PMET for foreigners? I create jobs for Singaporeans. No, there's no correlation in all that. In fact, you can just create jobs for the citizens without creating any jobs for foreigners, provided our education system, our skill set, right, taught to our students are properly calibrated to the industries that need them. That's number one. Number two, right, our apprenticeship, right, the MNCs, the SMEs are not overheated, bloated, right? We definitely can just create jobs for our citizens. Of course, our economy will be smaller. But ultimately, as I said, whatever policy we have made, it must aim to have only one and only one aim. That is to give a better quality life for all Singaporeans. Others are just gaslighting and bullshit. Whatever policies do come out, cause hardship to our people, cause them to be displaced and become Grab drivers and become Grab delivery, do Grab delivery and become hawkers and try to glamorize all these or jobs as something with glamour. I say You're not doing it right. We are regressing instead of progressing. And you have the cheek to say a forward Singapore. I think it's a backward Singapore, right? So the whole logic of Tan See Leng presentation, whether it's causation or a correlation, is it have any causation link, right? Is a big question mark. Right? I have shown that it's impossible to have 380,000 new jobs for the past 10 years for local, so-called local, unless you take into consideration those who are former foreigners, who are PRs, that become, who are PMETs and the PRs, who become citizens. 那个也算进去啊? How can it be? Right? Basically, the increase is actually from the PRs, although the PRs seems constant, but because of our upgrading. I've waited for about almost a week for Tan See Leng's this narrative to go around the internet and all that. But exactly no one actually can explain why the data they gave, the narrative that he tried to put forward is utterly rubbish. Utter rubbish. This one, I learned from my lecturer last time. Whenever we put up something stupid, nonsensical, he will say utter rubbish. No one seems to be able to explain. Although everyone seems to feel that the phenomenon, right? Singaporeans have become Grab drivers, from PMET become Grab drivers. How can it be upgraded and all that? But nobody can actually poke the hole into him. That's why I find compelled to do it here. And imagine if I go into Parliament, they will have a hard time with me. I'm going to scrutinize every presentation or misrepresentation of data and statistics they try to put up to gaslight everybody. As I've done for the COVID, I can do for anything that have to do with data and statistics. Right? Okay, back to the thing I've missed out. Trump. Da-da-da-da. Trump have sworn in as the president of United States, finally. Right? Even before he have sworn in as a president of the United States, immediately the Gaza war stops, ceasefire. Okay, and Facebook did something, stop the fact checkers, and now he's write a lot of executive orders. I was told 200 executive orders within one day, right? 1 or 2 days, right? Now, among all these executive orders, right? Before he become that, right? Biden already preempted him. Right? Wow, have a pardon, preemptive pardon for Fauci and a lot of other people, afraid that Trump will take revenge against them. What do you mean by taking revenge against Fauci? It's nonsensical, right? Why? Trump was the one who approved the acceleration program to get the mRNA COVID vaccine out. Okay, because with Dr. Fauci's um, recommendation, right? So why is this nonsense about taking revenge against Fauci? Trump, of course, very pissed off that Biden have preempted him. So he removed the security detail. That means those who are protecting Dr. Fauci, because he received a death threat, something like that. over the COVID vaccine, etc., etc. So what is actually happening? Right? It happens to be this. Have to have something linked to this eco health alliance, which is actually a research NGO, something like that, right? Who have funded the gain of function research, which is banned, right? Which is banned in America. So they cannot have such research done in United States. But Fauci go through a channel, secret channel through this Eco Health Alliance to fund gain of function research around the world. It is believed that it was funding bio labs, right, in Wuhan, right, as well as Ukraine. And that's why we have a war in Ukraine. It's a very complicated one. You will never see such thing reported on Singapore mainstream media, right? Only people like us in Bo Tai Chi, right, keep receiving all this news. Right? So he actually broke the law by funding the gain of function because it was banned, and he used government funding to do it. That is why Biden had to preempt such thing, right? Such legal suit against Dr. Fauci. Right? 此地无银三百两嘛. If we are not guilty or guilty conscience, why do you need a pardon? Simple, right? And you know what? Things are changing very fast on the COVID side. Now, the UK chief medical officer. Chief medical officer is someone like Kenneth Mark in Singapore, right? Finally broke his silence and say that the vaccine mandate is political. It got nothing to do with scientific thing, decision. This is very important. It means that politicians have been influencing mandates, force people to take vaccines, which even the chief scientist, right, chief medical officer, think that it should not be. He's skeptical about the safety of the vaccine. That's why he didn't want to have this mandate, but he was forced to because his boss up there says you must do it, right? He says the decision to implement the mandate was 100% political one. And then finally, this was from CNA. I was reporting about this lab leak theory, right? That the Trump administration actually says that most likely, COVID virus actually came from the lab leak in Wuhan, most likely, because the gain of function research was done there, right? And not from some monkeys or bats, right? It's not. It means that the Nobel Prize winner, the late French Luc Montagnier, who was a great researcher in HIV virus, was right. Was right when he says that this virus is actually man-made, artificially made in the lab. It cannot evolve in a natural environment or from the animals. It means it cannot be mutated, created naturally in a natural environment. It is produced in the lab. When he said that, the big pharma used their influence to get all other experts to actually label him, use the media to label him as conspiracy theories. For a respectable scientist like him, being smeared with all sort of tactics. Who is behind all this? The big pharma. And of course, Fauci, who was most probably the culprit behind this COVID virus. Now the CIA, after Trump comes up, says COVID-19 more likely to have leaked from lab. It basically means that it's man-made. So the university, the WhatsApp university becomes the truth. Power of WhatsApp universities. People keep saying conspiracy theories, conspiracy theories. I always have an open mind. Although not all conspiracy theories I believe. I have an open mind not to write people off when I do not have the facts in my head or the logic of the facts in my head. There are lots of possibilities around the world. Okay. And you know what? Right after this come out, a province in Canada, Alberta, this government, the state government, all right, a state in Canada, have a task force to look into the COVID. They come up with a report. It's a very damning report. It criticized how information were actually not transparent. Data was not transparent, right? So that there's a misjudgment, right? Alternative views, scientific views were actually brushed off or made irrelevant because of the lack of data, transparency of data, and so that the whole COVID becomes like a scam like. And in fact, the recommendation that they have they put forward, one of them is to halt the COVID-19 vaccination program. And this is very major. This is a major happening. Of course, again, our mainstream media will not report it. Why? If they report this, that means Lim Pei is right. The People's Power Party is right to call our MOH to halt, to pause the COVID vaccination program immediately until more safety data and more research is being done. Right? Among the recommendations, these are part of it. The regulations and codes of conduct around the use of medication and off-label drugs, right? Amending the Avatar Human Rights Act to protect them, the Canadian living in that state, rights to access to natural health product, right? Like ivermectin, right? Was one then. Forcing regulatory bodies to halt disciplinary action or prosecution against healthcare workers for using, promoting, or publicly discussing the benefits of medication for off-label treatment of illness. And this, I just know that happened to two of our doctors in Singapore. They were actually, the SMC, the Singapore Medical Council, actually took legal action and disciplinary action against them for promoting ivermectin in the very early days, right? And this is from Canada that says that you should not have such draconian laws against healthcare workers, means the doctors, for promoting alternative medication for treatment of any illness. Right? Even when these doctors are merely discussing, right, the ivermectin as a possible treatment, early treatment protocol, they were disciplined. Right? And if you remember, 12 of our doctors, brave doctors, actually came out with a letter, okay, to say that should not go into mass inoculation of the COVID mRNA vaccine. They were actually being silenced. Okay, this should not be happening. This is not I say one, this is from Canada, right? Or beta state, okay? Now, it says that it requires media to disclose dollar values of their public health and pharmaceutical contracts when reporting on health-related matters. This is to deal with conflict of interest, okay, between the big pharma and the media, which went on a media war to label and smear people who have alternative views against their interests. Right? And enacting whistleblowers legislation to protect a physician's right to voice concern about policies enacted by regulatory bodies. Right? Because in Singapore, it's the same. Anyone, any healthcare workers or doctors who raise concern, right, will be silenced, just as I have said, the 12 doctors. Right? And creating an avenue to expedite clinical trials of off-label or other treatments, among others. The problem of COVID-19 and the vaccination program is that we throw away all concept of early treatment protocol just to push for vaccination. That is not in the interest of the people. That is what he exactly say right here. Not I say one. Right? Don't puff mommy. So I say, the world is changing very fast. When Trump comes to light, I don't like Trump, Seriously, I don't like Trump. Right? Neither do my daughter. Right? But when I really go into examine his clarity of thoughts and the logic of the things that he says, most of them, not all, most of them make sense. But some of them, actually, I'm worried because it will create tension, trade tariff and all that. But when it comes to things like this, it makes a lot of sense. When there is no long-term data, when there's doubt about any medical intervention, you should not push for it. And you should not apply censorship when there's no clarity. You cannot apply censorship in a very distorted and skewed way. Right? That's why all these things are happening now. This is about governance. What are all these related to PAP, to Singapore? COVID have gone. My friend always say, "Aya, COVID 没了啦, don't need to bother, it's over." Right? Even when we go to the ground, we ask the auntie who are similarly supporting of PAP. I say, we ask him, "Have you taken your latest jab?" Bo my tolong. Okay. Alright? Even they know. Alright? So, but it's okay. But I say, "你不是跳舞咩? You listen to PAP one what? 你自己冇跳舞." I say, "Aya, different people have different body lah, 冇学想 lah, okay?" And all that. But the matter is this. It's about good governance. When you have a tyranny who thinks they have all the answers, who thinks they are smarter than everyone else, who thinks that they can gaslight people using all sort of funny representation of data and statistics to get off. You know how dangerous it is. Once they make a big mistake, everyone dies. A lot of people have been affected by the injuries, back injuries. Whether MOH admit their back injury or not, it doesn't matter anymore. Because to them, it is a lifelong impact. They are paralyzed, they have strokes, they can have nervous system cannot affected, they cannot even stand properly, cannot walk properly. Their whole life is being destroyed. If heart attack, lucky ones die faster. Not lucky ones, they suffer chronic diseases. Good governance must be in balance. You must have people, right, really sit on the opposite and say, hey, are you sure or not? You don't have all the data. It's a new technology. It's a new virus. We don't even know how it evolved. You want to go for mass inoculation. If I were to be voted into parliament, I will be the first one who raise concern. That should not be done. Don't tell me about expert or not, because data don't come from the thin air. Pop, you have the data. Because if long-term data means you need the time to examine what will happen to the body in a long period of time. Long-term data normally means 5 or 10 years. You don't have long-term data means you don't have. I've repeated that so many times. Now we are looking at the long-term impact already. Someone were actually telling me his friend who worked in a hospital, not as a doctor or the administration, start to observe there are more younger and younger people having cancer. It's not just death. As I said, if he died immediately, 一了百了百. If you have cancer, you have anxiety, you cannot work, you have financial difficulties, you burden your whole family, the life is destroyed. Not only one life is destroyed, the family will be destroyed, will be impacted. Good governance cannot be taken for granted. No matter how smart people are, they need to be checked. That's why the Canadian recommended the whistleblower system, right? You should not censor people who raise concern. You should not censor people who have alternatives, possible alternatives, raise possible alternatives, or else you become a tyranny. You are actually worse than the communists. Even in communist China, they don't force you to take vaccine, right? So this is about good governance. To maintain good governance, you have to have effective co-driver, not the driver that sleep together with the driver. Then we are longa, right? Not a co-driver, right? That do not know whether the driver is right or wrong, going to the right direction or wrong, but just turn around and slap the passenger behind, which point out the error, or worse, mock at them. No, you must have a very clear-minded co-drivers who do not take things for granted, who do not assume that he knows everything, right? Who are balanced, who are not egomaniac. And the ruling party should not be managed by egomaniac. Why I say egomaniac? I've said they have weaponized POFMA to the extreme. Even people write opinion piece, you POFMA them. When you want the POFMA to be passed, you say, oh, it's not about opinion that we will use POFMA against. We'll use POFMA against facts. But a lot of times when you look at it, hey, people are just expressing their opinion on why you POFMA them. You're weaponizing the POFMA. Why? Because they are egomaniac. They cannot bear the thoughts that people are criticizing them. Right? They will just poke, wow, any single little things they will say, oh, I POFMA you. Right? But in the end, talk more about the opinion is wrong. We will have to set this right in this election. It's not just about cost of living. I know cost of living are the main concern of many people, but more importantly are the governance. Governance includes mechanism like this: censorship, weaponizing legal means, POFMA, right? And worse, the population policy direction. And jobs, in terms of jobs, right? The seeker, whatever they say, we should not have such things being signed. I was just told, I have not verified that we have signed something, a free trade agreement, right? Comprehensive free trade agreement again with Vietnam, similar to what we have signed with India. I said, oh my God, here we go again. First with the Indian government, now with the Vietnamese government. Okay, I don't need the job, but it's your future generation. Future generations' jobs at stake and their quality life at stake. Okay, okay, Marco 了。I wish to wish all of you a happy Chinese New Year ahead, right? Okay, on the second day of Chinese New Year, it's Thursday. I will have a special. I normally don't have a live chat on Thursday, but this coming Thursday is going to be special. I will invite, right, one or two of my party colleague, to do a combined live chat, broadcast live chat again with all of you, and we might open to question from the ground, from the viewers, right, to ask any question under the sun. Right? There's nothing that we cannot discuss. Okay? And of course, this is an attempt, the first attempt. I'm going to introduce some of my key candidates in the coming election. Right? Election is coming anyway. That's why we have to slowly push out our candidates. Right? So I know it's the second day of a Chinese New Year now, but if you are free, right, please come. It will most likely start around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, earlier. For me, I can do 10:30 because I'm at home. But this time around, a few people together, so we will do it earlier. Right? So Thursday, 8 o'clock. See you then. And please like, share, and comment for all my live chat. And of course, if you can, right, donate to our election campaign fund. Good night and happy Chinese New Year. 恭喜发财，新年快乐，万事如意，身体健康最重要。Good night.